Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Wells Fargo Initial Research Show. Hopefully you all had a fantastic Mexico Open. Mine was an utter disaster. DFS was a complete shellacking, for lack of better terms. The only thing I got right this past week, Jon Rahm was number one in my rankings, and I was very high on Brandon Wu. Did cash a top 20 on Brandon Wu, but other than that, it was not a good showing for me, which is, honestly, it was okay. I was on vacation on a golf trip, so I don't know which was worse, my actual golf play or my picks in golf. So debatable for sure. But we are moving on to the Wells Fargo this week. Quite a bit of a different tournament than usual. The Wells Fargo is usually held at Quail Hollow in North Carolina. This year, Quail Hollow is hosting the President's Cup, so Quail Hollow is not hosting the Wells Fargo. Instead, we are at TPC Potomac in Washington, D.C., but we're going to cover everything about the course here in a little bit. The other announcement that I have is that I apologize for any of those that were looking forward to my initial baseball DFS stream today or this morning. I got back from the golf trip very, very late last night, later than I thought I would. Woke up this morning and realized how exhausted I was from swinging the club so many times. So I will be having DFS baseball content this upcoming week. Make sure you follow on social media. I'll be giving an update to the schedule. My tentative plan is to start Friday. Not sure exactly when, probably in the afternoon. But again, I will be updating that on social media. So if you are interested in baseball content or getting into DFS baseball, or simply just a baseball fan, make sure you give me a follow, particularly on Twitter, but also Instagram, and I will be updating my schedule for the upcoming week. But we aren't here for the baseball, we are here for the Wells Fargo, so let's get through the intro. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is simply the best resource out there. It is well worth your investment. It's going to make you a much better gambler, a much smarter DFS player. Go check them out. It is well worth your time. I alluded to my social media. Those links are in the description of all three streaming services, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch. Give me a follow there. I will be posting my betting cards, or I do post my betting cards every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show, and then back to a regular week this week where I will be doing some research and posing some either a question or giving you all some interesting information that I do researching throughout the week. So if you'd like to be in on that info, make sure you give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then finally, we are live. Chat is open. I want to hear about your Mexico Open. I honestly did not see any coverage of it. How was the course? Was it a bomber's fest like I thought it would be? How did your DFS play? Did you have any Jon Rahm in DFS? Did you bet Jon Rahm? I wouldn't have imagined too many did at 3.5 to 1. But did you hit some top 5, some top 20s? Want to hear all about that. And then want to hear about what you're looking forward to this week at the Wells Fargo. So with all that out of the way, let's do our initial research for the 2022 Wells Fargo. And we move over here to, as soon as I figure out my life, we move over here to Fantasy National. And we normally start with the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. However, that tournament fact sheet is not out yet. So hopefully we will have that tomorrow night, and we'll begin the data dive show with that. Let me make sure I have chat up and going. Please join in. I want to hear about your week. Did you watch much of the Mexico Open? How was the course? All that's good stuff. So, with the Wells Fargo, again, being in TPC Potomac, or at TPC Potomac in Washington, D.C., let's cover some of the field very quickly, and then we'll move on to the course breakdown. So your top players in the field in performance since the start of the calendar year. Those players are Russell Henley, Matt Fitzpatrick, Cameron Young, Rory McIlroy, Keith Mitchell, Keegan Bradley, Sepp Straka, Brian Harman, Corey Connors, and Matt Kuchar. Again, those are your top 10 in a pure strokes gained total. No other filter applied. Just the start of this calendar year. And, Sepp Straka with a win. Rory playing some of the premier events, playing them well. Russell Henley has a couple of top fives. I know he runner-up the Sony. Fitzpatrick's been playing great. Cameron Young, same. So, pretty good field this week. So let's take a look at TPC Potomac. And the good thing is, TPC Potomac has been played on the PGA Tour. It's just not been used since 2018. So some of the tournaments, or the tournament that we are using for that data, dates back to then. So the course, I don't think has changed. But again, that's what the GCSAA tournament fact sheet will be for, hopefully tomorrow night. But let's first go to Pro Visualizer. And I will probably, there we go. You'll see here that, at least by Pro Visualizer, it is a par 70 that measures just under 7,200 yards. Now, on Fantasy National, when we move back to that, the yardage on Fantasy National is much closer to 7,100, not 7,200. Regardless, we are looking at a short course. Only two par fives, one very, very long at 628 yards, the other pretty medium length at 558. A lot of the yardage here at TPC Potomac is at in the par threes. You got 228, you have 226, you have a 166, a very short par three, but then a 199. So three of the four par threes measure 200 or above. I'm going to use some liberal rounding here and go to 200. You got quite a few long par fours as well. 490, 461, 471. Now you do have a drivable par four at 297, I think, by Fantasy Nationals yardage. It says 304 here on Pro Visualizer. Regardless, it is a drivable par 4, but again, the length of TPC Potomac comes in the par 3s. I'm not going to go through each hole by hole, especially since we have a breakdown in Fantasy National. I looked through it very quickly. There appear to be about 5 holes with water in play. Looks fairly narrow, tree-lined fairways, and those without tree-lined fairways has either water or strategic bunkers in which you have to avoid if you want to attack the green. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of Pro Visualizer. Let's go to the Fantasy National course breakdown. And you see here, again, the lengths of the par 3s, 225. You have 190, which was listed at 199 at Pro Visualizer. The short 168 and 201. Not a lot of eagle opportunity. You have the par 5 10th. Yields about a 1.5%. That's not exactly all that high for a par 5 on the PGA Tour. However, the drivable par 4, the 14th, does yield a 4% eagle rate. So I am not sure eagles are going to be one of the factors that we look into, especially since the par 5 second only yields an eagle about 0.5% of the time. But there are birdie opportunities. The aforementioned drivable par 4 14th yields a birdie just over 42%. The par 5s 35% and 28%. There's a couple other birdie opportunities, but there are plenty of difficult holes here at TPC Potomac. The par 4 11th plays to almost a half a shot over par. You also have 2/10ths, 1500ths, 1600ths. So there are plenty of places that high numbers can be gained very quickly. So what I like to do, the 9th and 10th, easiest holes, right in the middle of the difficulty of the scorecard. You see here the 9th plays to a 10th a shot over par, the 10th 700ths over par. So if you get to, 11th is 500th, 12 is just under par. So in between the 11th most difficult at 500ths and the 12th, which is 200ths under par, somewhere around in there is even. So that tells you that the course will play difficult. It generally has, at least in the 2 years that it was used for the Quicken Loans National in 2017 and 2018. Let's see, other things that stand out to me, at least on the scorecard. I kind of pointed it out in the Pro Visualizer, the length of the par 3s. There are a few lengthy par 4s. It looks like the long par 4s are the most difficult here at TPC Potomac. You have the par 4 6th, 484, par 4 8th, 467, par 4 11th, 470. Surprisingly, the par 4 15th at 490 is not exactly one of the most difficult. It does play over par. The 18th, another long par 4. So the long par 4s are difficult here at TPC Potomac. Your best chances at scoring well, the drivable par 4 14th. You've got the par 5s are your other two easiest holes. Let's see, 15th, the most difficult, short par 4, 14th, another short par 4. So it looks like, at least by a quick inspection view, that the shorter par 4s and the par 5s are where you try to attack this course, and you hold on for dear life on the long par 4s. So let's move into the average stroke gained by shot type. You see here that strokes gained approach, highly favored at this tournament. And then putting off the tee, not too far behind putting, which signifies the fact that this seems to be a ball striker's course. And then around the green, at least for finishers in the top 10, not important at all. Let's move to the top 5s. You've still got approach heavily outweighing all the others. Kind of a set, similar distribution from the top 5s to the top 10s. And then the winners, you see here, look at the winners. The winners are not necessarily your best performers, even for putting at the week. It is all ball striking. Approach jumps more than one stroke per round. So the winners average 2 strokes gained on approach. The top 5 averaged just over 1. The off the tee jumped, it more than doubled. So strokes gained off the tee for your winners was a little bit under 1.3. For the top 5s, it was about 0.6. So it more than doubled. So it's very important to know this is a big time ball strikers course. It's what I thought was going to happen at Mexico. So good stuff there. And then we'll move down here to the average strokes gained by hole by par. Okay, so you have the par 5s and the par 4s relatively the same. Par 5 slightly more important, and then par 3's a little lower. You move to the top 5s. It starts to be the par 4s, gaining some headway, now overtaking par 5s in terms of importance. Par 3 still lagging behind. Then the winners, to be expected, they really take advantage of the par 5s. The par 4s drop off in importance. The par 3s actually rise. So we'll definitely dig into this a whole lot in the in the Data Dive show. But it seems like, at least as you're climbing the leaderboard, until you get to the winners, par 4s are fairly important, par 5s, and then only when you get to your winners is the par 3 or the par 3s taking any precedence. Let's move down to the whole composition chart. Not a lot to, or at least based on this graph, to focus on in the par 3s in terms of lengths. You've got one at 225 plus, one 200 to 225, one 175 to 200, and one short. Now on Pro Visualizer, you actually had two in the 225 plus, and you had one at 199. So it'll be interesting to see how the 2 years that the Quicken Loans National was played here at TPC Potomac, how those par 3s played, if they did indeed play long. So we'll see about that. There's the drivable par 4, two other short par 4s, the other two, what I'll say, scoreable par 4s. You've got three, shorter or medium length par 4s from 400 to 450, and then the majority of the par 4s here, 6 of the 12 par 4s here at TBC Potomac are from 450 to 500. So we're definitely going to scrutinize this tomorrow night in the Data Dive show, figure out if this is a key indicator to success, the 2 years that this course was in play. And then finally, your two par 5s split evenly from 550 to 600 and 600 to 650. Approach shot distribution, it seems like the most common approach shot here at TBC Potomac was 175 to 200. So again, we'll figure out if that is indeed the most important range in terms of approach shots. It is certainly the most disparate between course and average PGA Tour event. The second most common approach shot is the 200 plus, and it is very slightly under the average tour event. So we're going to figure out if this is indeed a longer iron course. How much importance do we need to put into the 175 to 200 approach range, and all that. So moving to the historic cut line. The first year, the historic cut line was +5. In 2017, the Quicken Loans National cut line was +5. Very, very, very difficult. And then moved to +2, more of an average finish, certainly on the difficult end, but more average in 2018. Scoring distribution around the par, slightly more birdies than bogeys, but you factor in the doubles. So the bogeys and doubles outweigh the birdies and whatever few eagles there are on this course, showing that it is a slightly more difficult course. Driving accuracy, much lower here than the average tour event. Greens, much lower here than the average tour event. And I'm really hoping that the GCSAA tournament fact sheet will be out tomorrow. That way we can really get a gauge on what this number or what's contributing to this, whether they're smaller greens. I'm sure the level of difficulty, of course, is also contributing to this. Scrambling percentage, much lower here than the average tour event, much lower success rate. And combining that with the around the green not being important, not sure how much we're going to factor in around the green metrics. 3 putts per round, much lower here than the average tour event. Just only based on this graph does this mean, or this says to me that these greens are smaller, but I can't confirm that until I see the GCSA tournament fact sheet. Distance here, much longer than the average tour event, 284. Well, I shouldn't say much longer. 284 and a half here at TPC Potomac, 282 and a half the average tour event. So longer distance, shorter accuracy. Seems like guys tend to want to drive it further and not worry about the rough or hitting the fairway. So it'll be interesting to see that data. And then finally, proximity to the hole with greens and regulation, closer to the hole here than the average tour event. So I've got two metrics here that seemingly shows small greens, but we'll see. We move to, I believe, glad that I had this up. This is the tournament conditions at Quicken Loans, and we're only going to be able to focus on 2017 and 18, as formerly the Quicken Loans National was at Congressional, Robert Trent Jones, and whatnot. So we only have 2 years of data here for the TBC Potomac, Quicken Loans National. The 2 years, 2018 played average, and the 2017 version played difficult, very difficult. The one consistency we have, we're on fast and bent greens, so that's one of the metrics we can definitely take a look at. Feel fairly confident in that these are going to be fast bent greens. The rough length has been average both years. Plays to a par 70, and both years it was less than 7,200 yards. So perhaps some short course metrics. Hopefully, again, we'll get that yardage. Fantasy National had these yardages much closer to the 7,100. Pro Visualizer has it much closer to 7,200. So if it's closer to 7,200, not sure how much weight I'd want to put into course length. If it's closer to 7,100, then I'll definitely factor that in much more in the data model on the DFS Tactics show, just how much more weight I give it in general throughout the week. So there is a look at the tournament conditions here at TBC Potomac, the 2 years it was played. I thought I had that tab up. Turns out I either closed it out or moved it. So let's take a quick look at the leaderboard from the 2018 and 2017 Quicken Loans National. So 2018, we went over the kind of the overview of the course conditions. Your winner was Francesco Molinari, and he ran away with this tournament. Winner of minus 21. Minus 13 was second. Francesco was just absolutely on fire that week. Let's take a look at the strokes gained very quickly. You see here tee to green. Putting wasn't, he putt well, but look at the strokes gained approach. Speaking to the graph that we saw in the course breakdown, he did chip it pretty well. Just an amazing display of golf that week. Ryan Armour played well. Sun Kang, Tiger got his finish seemingly with the flat stick. Bo Hostler, same. So there's a quick look at the strokes gained overview numbers. And again, we'll cover this very, very in depth tomorrow on the Data Dive show. Let's take a quick look at 2017. And you see here that it played much, much more difficult the year before. Minus 7 was your winner, and Kyle Stanley won in a playoff with Charles Howe. Whereas in 2018, minus 7, I think, might have gotten you into the top 20. So it was tied for 13th the next year, minus 7. 2017 will come back. So minus 7, the champion that year. This is the year that plus 5 was the cut. take another look at the strokes gained overview. You see here Kyle Stanley, a lot of approach off the tee, major factor. He did not putt well that week, signifying that it might not be the most important metric, but we're definitely going to be looking at fast bent greens in terms of who generally putts them well. But there is a look at the leaderboards for the 2018 and 2017 Quicken Loans. I'm going to bring it back to 2018 just in case we want to take a look. But we're going to come back here to the main page on Fantasy National, and even though we don't have the GCSAA tournament fact sheet, the first thing we generally do, we look at putting. Both years here at TBC Potomac, it was fast bent greens. So I'm going to go ahead and add fast and bent. And you see here that we have not had bent greens yet in 2022, with the exception of the Masters. That data is proprietary, so we don't have the specifics. So what I'm going to have to do is go back, and let's make this very easy. Let's just go back to May 1st of last year. And I don't remember exactly which days the Wells Fargo happened last year. I'm going to have to hopefully find a player here fairly quickly that played in the Wells Fargo. Hopefully. There's Memorial. Yeah. We'll find someone here eventually. But going back the last 12 months from May 1st of 2021 till essentially the Zurich Classic. Of course, the Mexico Open stats are not in, and Mexico Open was not on bent greens anyway. So dating back to May 1st of last year, your top performers on fast bent greens are Rory McIlroy, Vaughn Taylor, Abraham Ancer, Sam Ryder, Troy Merritt, Seamus Power, Mackenzie Hughes, Pat Perez, Zach Johnson, and Cam Davis. Cam Davis, his win at the 3M, I believe that is bent as well. Leaderboard. Yeah. Fast bent green. So that's someone to perhaps take a look at early on in your research. Let's see. Did I just exit? No, there we go. Troy Merritt had a run of success late in the PGA Tour season last year. Seamus Power, his win at the Barbasol, I believe that is on Bermuda. Let's see. His Barbasol, yeah, no, okay. Those are average bent greens, but bent nonetheless. So another player that has a win on bent greens. Let's see. Mackenzie Hughes, Sam Ryder, Vaughn Taylor, Rory. Believe his win at the the CJ Cup, I believe, was on bent. Yep, the Summit Club. So a lot of your tournament winners in the past year having been on bent up here. So it'll be interesting to see what are some maybe outliers in terms of guys that had a good putting week versus players who just putt bent greens well. But there is a look at your top putters in terms of fast bent greens in the past 12 months. Let's move on to short courses, just in case this does turn out to be more of a 7,100 yard as opposed to a 7,200 yard course. We have 44 rounds with short course. I'm going to take a look and see if there's enough from just the start of this calendar year. Does 20 rounds? No. Let's go ahead and bring it back to where we were. So again, the same time frame dating back to May 1st of 2021. Your top performers on short courses Short course being less than 7,200 yards defined by Fantasy National. Your top performers on short courses, you have Seamus Power, Russell Henley, Troy Merritt, Corey Connors, Keith Mitchell, Eric Van Rooyen, Denny McCarthy, Adams Vinson, Mark Hubbard, and Sepp Straka. So quite a bit of overlap here. Seamus Power on the putting and short course. Troy Merritt the same. I believe Keith Mitchell was up there in the putting. EVR we did not say or mention in the top 10 of the fast bent, but he was very close there, 11th or 12th or so. Sepp Straka was in both. There's Mackenzie Hughes, Abraham Answer. Mackenzie Hughes was in the top 10 of the putting, just missed top 10 of short course. Abraham Answer, same way. Top 10 in putting, just missed the top 10 of short course. Same for Cam Davis, top 10 in putting, just missed top 10 of short course. So quite a bit of overlap there. Interesting to note. We'll see if that is a theme throughout the week. Let's see. I'm going to bring this back into the beginning of this calendar year. Let's take a look at both off the tee and approach. We're going to go with just ball striking. So strokes gained ball striking is something that I don't tend to look at. I try to separate out off the tee and approach, but with this course seemingly such a heavy influence on ball strikers. So your top 10 performers in the ball striking, so ball striking being off the tee and approach, your top 10 ball strikers since the beginning of this calendar year. Those players are Corey Connors, Keegan Bradley, Max Homa, Cameron Young, Luke List, Keith Mitchell, Russell Henley, Mito Pereira, Russell Knox, and Matt Fitzpatrick. All right, good stuff there. There's EVR, who has been top 15 in all three of the factors we've looked at so far. There's Rory, he was number 1 in putting. He is 20th in ball striking. Cameron Young has been up there a couple of times. Keith Mitchell, I believe, has been up there all three. Would have to double check the putting, but I think he was up there for the putting, and then I know he was up there for the short course and now ball striking. So good stuff there. I'm going to go ahead and look at off the tee and approach. So Corey Connors, 4th and off the tee, 10th and approach. Got Keegan, 12th and 5th. Max Homa, 10th and 14th. Russell Henley, terrible off the tee, but number 1 in strokes gained approach. You have, let's see, Rory, 11th and 36th. Eric Van Rooyen's getting all of his on strokes gained approach. Keith Mitchell, all of his is on off the tee. Same bit, a little bit to Cameron Young. All right, there we go. So good stuff to look at there. Not sure how much more we can dig into. I definitely did not put together the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that I generally put together because the normal or usual tournament is based at Quail Hollow. So that's something I'm going to build tomorrow, are the two tournaments at TPC Potomac. If anybody is in the field and how they fared those 2 years. Something that we can do, though, is take a look at birdies and bogeys. Let's see. I don't think Eagles gained is going to be the optimal stat on this tab here on Fantasy National. Let's see. Make sure I don't have any filters up. But I do want to take a look at birdies gained, especially being a difficult course. But there are birdie opportunities, especially on the short par 4s. So your top birdies gained players since the start of this calendar year: Cameron Young, Russell Henley, Keegan Bradley, Sepp Straka, Terrell Hatton, Chad Ramey, Bo Hostler, Johnny Vegas, Lonto Griffin, and Keith Mitchell. Conversely, on the bogeys avoided statistic, you've got Matt Fitzpatrick. So he is pretty good at birdies and very good, best actually, at avoiding bogeys. So you have Matt Fitzpatrick, number 1 in bogeys avoided, Gary Woodland second, Mito Pereira, Sepp Straka, Ryan Armour, Seamus Power, Paul Casey, Rory, Bo Hostler, and Corey Connors. So the players that are both top 10 the players that are top 10 in both birdies gained and bogeys avoided since the calendar year. You've got Sepp Straka, 3rd in birdies, 4th in bogeys. You've got Bo Hostler, 7th and 9th. Honorable mention here to Corey Connors, 12th and 10th. Jason Day, 16th in birdies, 13th in bogeys. We'll come down here, see Keith Mitchell, 9th in birdies, 24th in bogeys, and Cameron Young, 1st in birdies, 27th in bogeys. So good stuff there. Let's see. Fairways and greens. We saw that distance was more important than fairways. So, and greens in regulation percentage was much lower here than the tour average. So let's take a look at driving distance. So your top driving distance players since the start of the calendar year in the field this week. You've got Joseph Brandlett, Johnny Vegas, Trey Mullinax, Rory, Cameron Young, Brandon Hagee, Curtis Thompson, Callum Tarrant, Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts, and Gary Woodland. He will always be Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts after what happened earlier this season. All right, good stuff there. Not sure how much this is going to be a major factor. We'll have to really dig in the data dive tomorrow and see. Proximity, that'd be a decent one to look at here. 175 to 200. If this is indeed the optimal statistic to focus on for proximity, your top performers in approach shots 175 to 200 yards since the start of the calendar year: Jared Wolf, Mark Leishman, Ricky Fowler, Abraham Answer, Sepp Straka, Satoshi Kodaira, Matthew Neesmith, Max Homa, Nate Lashley, and Martin Laird. Okay. I don't know if this will change based on the Mexico Open. I doubt it, because we don't get proximities from any other international courses, so I doubt this will change, but we'll see. Last thing I kind of want to focus on, we'll check the par 4s 450 to 500. Half of the par 4s, 6 of the 12 here at TPC Potomac come in this length, 450 to 500. So, of the par 4s of that length since the start of the calendar year, your top performers are Cameron Young, Seamus Power, Gary Woodland, Mito Pereira, Andrew Putnam, Tyler Duncan, Corey Connors, Martin Laird, Keith Mitchell, and Mark Hubbard. Mark Hubbard and Ryan Armour, with Hubbard and Armour being tied for 10th. Rory just outside of it. Keegan just outside of it. So, all right. Not much more I can cover this evening, so I will stay on for a couple of minutes here. If there are any questions or any specific statistics that you want to see. But again, I intend to put together the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that I usually do, breaking out the strokes gained total in terms of the individual statistics. I'll be doing that for the 2 years here at Quicken Loans National. At TBC Potomac, the 2018 and 2017 years. We'll definitely scrutinize each of these tabs for those 2 years, figure out what's going on. Hopefully the GCSAA tournament fact sheet will be out. We can start to put together a reasoning as to why perhaps the greens are lower here, why there's less 3 putts, the greens in regulation, proximity, and things like that. But again, otherwise, I think that's going to do it for the initial research show. Bit of a shorter show this evening. getting back into the swing of things from vacation. A reminder that this week I'm going to be starting the DFS baseball content. I had intended to do that this morning. Got caught up in getting back into my routine schedule. I was really tired driving back from the golf trip this past week and all that. But I will be starting baseball content later this week, tentatively Friday. But I will be posting my updated schedule and announcements and such on social media. So if you want to see any of that update and information, make sure you give me a follow at the links in the description. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow night for the Data Dive show. Let me know in the comments. How do you think TPC Potomac's going to play this week? How was your Mexico Open? Did you have John Rahm? Did you bet him? What were some of your best lineups for DFS for the Mexico Open and so on? So for all of the wagers that you had at the Mexico Open this past weekend, for all of the DFS contests you played at the Mexico Open, and for any wagers you're thinking about making early on this week for the Wells Fargo, may all your bets be profitable.